Hey, this is Larry Joe Guitars. I know it's been a couple months since he passed. Ozzy Osbourne, I wanted to wear my shirt. Um, he hasn't been an extremely, influential person to my guitar playing, specifically. I mean, especially later in my life. But the beginning, right when I first started thinking about playing, not playing, thinking about playing and how it sound, Ozzy Osbourne absolutely had a lot of influence with different sounds and techniques he was using to get the music out, and through Randy Rhoads, who is one of my favorite guitar players. When I listened to him, it was like amazing. Anyways, I would say this is like in my mind, in my memory, this is circa 1982, I think, like 82. We lived in this one apartment right next, two doors from this one guy, Wade Bowman. If you're watching this, Wade, I doubt it, but if you are, hit me up with a like, we can talk or whatever. Anyways, I was kind of poor, our family was kind of poor, but his family were doing good, and his father always made sure he had tons of stuff. Anyways, I remember going over, he invited me over there. I used to stay overnight, mostly because he always had sweetened cereal. Okay, this sounds crazy, but he'd have Lucky Charms or or any of the other ones, Fruit Loops, whatever. We never had that. I had normal cornflakes. Normal cornflakes is what I ate for breakfast, or oatmeal. No sweetened. Anyways, I'd stay overnight at his house just because they always had a sweetened cereal. Anyways, so one day I came over and I was going to stay the night. He's like, dude, come here, check this out. And he showed me the album cover for Blizzard of Oz. And he said, what do you think? And at that time, I'd heard a little bit about Black Sabbath. Not too much. Most of the stuff I listened to was just on the FM channels, and most of the stuff was like classic rock, Eagles, Beatles, John Lennon, that stuff. But at that time, I was trying to find something a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more of what I wanted here. I didn't know it, of course, at the time, but I was looking for something a little bit aggressive, more than I didn't know at the time. So he showed me the cover, and I have a religious belief, certain things that are important to me that I still have today. And I remember seeing the cover with him laying there, and he's got the cross up, and I was like, I really don't like that cover, man. He's kind of putting down Jesus. He's like, oh, that's just his whole show, man. That's not real. In fact, he bit a head off of a bat. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, he did. And I was like, okay. So he puts it on. And Crazy Train. And several other songs came on. I think No Bone Movies. Even like Goodbye to Romance. I was like, I could hear him singing and working through the melodies. And then there was this guy playing the guitar behind him. And I was like, I don't know how he's doing that. But this is one of the best sounding parts I've ever heard in my life. I've never heard anything this good. And he's like, the guitarist is good, isn't it? And I was like, I don't know what he's doing, but it's really cool, man. I don't know how he's doing it. He's like, oh, that's Randy Rhoads. He's this guitar wizard that Ozzy got when he left Black Sabbath. And I'm like, I didn't know much about Black Sabbath. So I'm like, okay. And then whenever I went over his house, he would put that on, and I'd be like in my own headspace, right? I'd be in my own headspace. I could just close my eyes. In fact, he had like a black light, and he had posters that had the different orange and greens and everything. And he'd just sit there. I mean, nowadays they'd probably be having weed, but we didn't. I mean, I was like 12, 13, but maybe nowadays they would have it. But I would just sit there in his room and listen to this album. Every song, like I said, is my headspace. I could feel the notes. I could see what he was trying to do. I didn't know anything about guitar at that time, and I couldn't know the notes, and I couldn't see what he was doing, but I was just imagining the music like flowing over me, like this amazing stuff just coming over me and then relaxing me and then making me feel aggressive but relax at the same time. And I was like, this is amazing. And every time I went over there, I would ask him to put it on. And then there was like, summer happened and he went to, I think, Oregon to be with his dad. And then he came back and he's like, dude, check this out. And I'm like, okay. And he showed the album cover for Diary of a Madman, and more of the, the symbolism. And I read, I like the first one, Blizzard of Oz. Mr. Crowley was creepy with how he sang it. I got to make note of that. And they didn't have, I remember, it's not the same as like the internet now. You can look up whatever you want on the internet, right? Anyway, so I didn't know Mr. Crowley was Aleister Crowley, who is like one of the proponents of the first Church of Satan or whatever, if you believe that stuff. I don't know. Anyways, so I remember listening, I'm like, what the heck? And then here's Diary of a Madman. He shows me the cover, and I was like, oh man, why does he do so much of this symbolism stuff? And he's like, I don't know, that's how he does it though. And I'm like, okay, and he puts it on, and the songs are great. I remember Over the Mountain, and I remember listening, and I was like, wow, how does he do that? And then I think Suicide Solution's on there. Anyways, I remember listening to both of them, but I really liked that one because it was new, and it felt life-altering. And then a lot of people were starting to listen to like Iron Maiden and like Judas Priest. Judas Priest had been around way before that, but I didn't hear too much of them. But a lot of people started coming out with the Screaming for Vengeance, which is, I love that album. Anyways, right around that whole time, all this music that I'd never heard before started just being hit with me, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And he came out with, well, we found out Randy Rhoads died right after that, and we were like, oh, this is terrible, and I was like, I don't understand how he can make this music sound like this if he doesn't have the guitar player he has. And then he did the live album that he did with the one guy from what's the name of that band? See, I'm drawing a blank, like I said. They had Sister Christian. The guitarist was a guitarist that replaced Randy directly. And then Bark at the Moon came out. And I wasn't hanging around with my buddy Wade that often, and we moved. My family liked moving a lot. I don't know if it's to get out of paying rent. I don't know. Anyways, so we moved around, and Diary of a Madman Bark at the Moon came out, and I never got a chance to listen to it, and I had other things going on in my life. We were moving around and stuff. And then Ultimate Sin came out, and that blew up, and I bought the cassette for it, and I was like, this is freaking amazing, and all the different things that Jakey Lee could do, and he didn't even have a freaking tremolo system on his guitar. And I remember, like Killer of Giants, the arpeggios, he's like, all 5, 6 strings just arpeggio in the different chords, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And right around that time, I started playing guitar, and I was listening to this guy, and this guy was bad enough to make me want to quit my guitar playing. And then I heard Jakey Lee, I was like, holy cow, how can these guys be so damn good? Anyways, and then like a year later, a buddy of mine is like, hey man, do you have Diary of a Madman? Because I had a little cassette player, and I brought it in with the little orange headphones, right? And I brought it in, and I was like, no, but I have Ultimate Sin. I was like, I remember Bark at the Moon, but I don't have a copy of it, and I didn't know if I wanted to spend the money for it because it was like $15, and this is like the early '80s, so 15. That's like $80 now. It seems like. Anyways, my buddy's like, hey, I can make you a copy of it, and I was like, you sure? And I was probably like 16, 17. And I'm like, okay. And he makes a copy, and I put it in the next day, and I was like, wow. I mean, the front cover of him in the, looking like some kind of half werewolf thing, in front of the moon and everything. And then later I saw the video for it on MTV, and I was like, this is weird. But the music was fantastic. And then I was like, oh my God, how can freaking J.K. Lee's guitars, how can he make that guitar sound like that? Anyway, so I was playing those back to back, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. How did I miss this album? And then I thought back to when I was listening to the 2 albums with my buddy Wade, and I was like, wow, I missed out. And like I said, I hadn't hung around with Wade in a long time. Right around that time, him and another friend of mine started getting into drugs and stuff, and I wasn't so cool with that. Anyways, so that's the story. So Ozzy Osbourne and his first 2 guitar players, more than Black Sabbath and Tony Iommi, affected my guitar playing without me even knowing it, And it's so strange when I think about it, because he just died. And he had that final show, and he just died and everything. And I thought, of course, I listen to these guys and the other people that I say are my influences, but Ozzy was a huge, huge start before I started playing guitar. And that's actually kind of more important almost than some of the other things that I've seen in my life for playing guitar, And I still think J.K. Lee. In fact, when I saw the reunion show, I was like, yeah, go Jake, man. You wrote those songs. Anyway, so Ozzy Osbourne, I give you tribute. Hopefully you're in heaven, all the crazy stuff you did. I'm surprised you lived as long as you did, Hopefully you're in heaven. It depends on what the judgment is. I have no say in any of that, but hopefully you're there and resting or jamming there with other buddies or whatever, Anyway, so that's my little tribute to Ozzy Osbourne and how he affected me. Leave a comment if this is interesting to you. Leave a comment if you wanted me to do different videos, different guitar playing. Give me a like, hit the bell, or subscribe. The bell just next time I do it. So I'm trying to knock as many as I can because it's not so hot outside. So I think this is my 4th one. But I'm going to try to get them up there as fast as I can and upload it. Anyways, thanks for viewing my channel and listening to me talk. And I'm going to put this in the title. There's no guitar playing, so I'll probably get maybe 25 views. But that's okay. I have to get my story out because I feel it's interesting. It could be interesting too, Anyways, I'm Larry Joe with Larry Joe Guitars. Thanks for coming to my channel and listening to my story and my history. Thank you for coming and have a good night. It's doing it again. I hate this thing sometimes. Okay, I hate this thing all the time. Come on. What do you want to do?